So let's go into your reading here, Sagittarius. The first card that is coming out here, this is a really good card. We have here the Nine of Pentacles, and this is a card about self-employment. This is a card about making your money work for you. So working smart rather than working hard, okay? And a lot of you are in situations where you might be working as a freelance artist, a freelancer, or just a consultant. You own your own business, and assets and things like that are starting to grow for you. And a lot of you might be retired, okay? So you're not really physically touching work, touching money, but I feel that you have quite a few things saved up. It could be like money coming through from institutions or from pension or from retirement packages that are allowing you to sustain your lifestyle. And I do sense that there is a sense of boredom as well associated with this card. It's a positive card overall, but it feels almost as if something is missing, okay? So while you could, stay where you are, things are stable financially, things are really good. I feel that, as the nature of a Sagittarius person, you like to keep busy. You like to be productive as well. You like to see new things. You like to explore new lands, new landscape, new territory. So I feel like there is this sense of like, yes, you have the stability, but there is that sense of lacking something, wanting to explore new areas, wanting to break out a little bit and wanting to try something new. So I do feel a lot of you are either self-employed, or if you are employed, or even not employed, there's money coming through, there's a lot of stability, and also there's a lot of leisure time as well, which leads me to believe some of you are retired and thinking about, the kids are out of the nest, they're starting their own families, and they're so caught up with their own families that they might not have enough time to come visit. The home environment, if you're sharing the home with another person, I feel like you would rather spend time on your own because there's friction. There's something here that indicates to me if you're sharing your space, if you have a spouse, for example, the spouse might be too much of a homebody and they don't really want to go out and explore. They don't really want to try new things. So they're happy with the status quo. They're happy. And you feel like you're feeling a little bit claustrophobic within your household environment. So you want a change of scenery. You want to try something different. You want to go out and explore. So I feel like some of you might be in a relationship, like, either living with or just dating somebody that is too much of a homebody and they don't really want to, they don't have that same sense of thirst for adventure that you do, okay? And they might be a little bit of a stickler for the same rules, a little bit more, a lot less adventurous than you are. And so you're trying to also think about, taking trips possibly on your own, okay? Because I feel like this person is holding you back quite a bit, and they're not going to want to explore. So you're going to have to create the opportunities for yourself if you are inclined, like if you're, retired, or if you have a lot of disposable income and you want to just, break out a little bit, okay? I feel that financially things are really good for you guys this month, Sagittarius. I was worried about that because, the last year especially seems a little bit brutal, but I feel like, since the beginning of this year, you have gotten things in order. You have started to do things because I feel like a lot of you have gone through this major growth spurt where you're thinking a lot more about your long-term future, 3, 5, 10 years from now. What do I want my life to look like? And I feel like you have taken a lot of steps, like slowly but surely. You have taken a lot of steps in order to secure a better financial future for yourself. So I feel like this is the month in which you start to feel okay. You start to feel financially stable. There's disposable income coming through to allow you to, take those trips to do like retreats, even to explore your spirituality. And in the daily bustle and grind of, having to sustain ourselves, having to make ends meet, I feel like you have neglected that sense of spiritual and I want to say like that spiritual development. And I feel like this is the month in which that's going to come to the forefront. And that's something that you're taking the time to do. So I feel like taking trips, doing something that innately, will expand your horizon, will allow you to network and come into contact with different people. You're going to be able to, have that sense of inner peace, have that sense of expansion, and also have that sense of like spiritual enlightenment and spiritual realignment. Okay, so I feel like overall it's going to be a good month. Um, some of you are still dealing here with people who are quite manipulative. Okay, so we have here the King of Cups, and for this spread, I'm not reading them as specific people. Okay, so I feel like some of you are still dealing with this energy. This I feel is somebody that you might have children with. Okay, so we have here possibly a water sign. So this is a Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio. There's going to be communication coming through from this person. And I feel like the news, the information is coming through in regards to children, in regards to like where they are living, whether or not the children are safe and secure under this person's care. Okay, it could be a male or female, but I feel like there's going to be, it seems to me like you close the door on this person, right? And it feels to me like they're knocking at the door and they're trying to wedge their foot in. And then once they have their foot in, they push boundaries with you and they try to, you know, wedge their knee in. And then once they get that in, they try to wedge like the rest of their body in. So it's like somebody that has no sense of personal boundaries. So you need to be very careful. And a lot of the times you are a little bit lax. You are very carefree when you're dealing with people. So they're telling you that in order to deal with this energy, and this is not somebody that's new and unexpected. Like, you know how this person has behaved in the past, right? You know that the person is very susceptible to, like, they might even be, you know, someone who is who's very deceitful. So let me just say that. And I get the word like pathological liar, somebody who's very, very skilled at misleading the public, somebody who might not I want to say like they're just not very honorable. So the point here is this: you need to really be firm, Sagittarius. Okay, and you're such big softies inside. You know, like no matter what, I feel like in public you might have a tough facade, but I do feel that deep down, emotionally, you guys are really soft, and the softness is not coming from weakness. It's the fact that you believe people can change. You know, you believe in rehabilitation, and you believe, especially if you have an emotional connection with someone, you don't want them to suffer. You don't want them to like be cast out in the cold, you know? So I feel like the card is coming through to advise you, you know, that you need to learn from the past. You need to know better so that you can manage this person better. So here's what I'm feeling. I feel like for some of you, this might be an ex-partner that you have children with. You might have been married to them. And for some of you, this might be somebody in your work environment, you know, who pushes boundaries. So I feel like this, they have trouble with communication, okay? And this is why I feel like it might not be a water sign. They have trouble being direct. They have trouble being truthful. And I feel like every time you talk to them, you ask them a question, they really they gauge your, they really gauge your tone. They really gauge your demeanor, your nonverbal communication. So they take a really long time to respond. And when somebody takes a really long time to respond, automatically in your mind, you're like, oh, they're lying. So they might not be lying. They're just very, very conflict avoidant. So they really want to gauge like what you're trying to get them to say. They overthink it. They overanalyze. You're just asking for the truth. And I feel like they're looking at you as if, well, does he or she want me to tell them this, or do they want me to tell them that? So yes, they have problems with being truthful, but at the same time, when you approach this person, do it in a very soft, lighthearted manner so that they're not anxious. When they get anxious, they jumble the truth and they might not give you the answer in a truthful manner. So I feel like you're dealing with somebody that has trouble with honesty, but there is this deep-rooted sense of anxiety within them that when, you know, they hear loud noises, they get really scared. When when somebody's really upset with them and charges at them, they might they might react like, you know, like a trapped deer or a trapped rabbit or a trapped dog, you know, like they might bark out, they might bite back. And I feel like this is somebody that has some type of inner psychosis where they have really high anxiety. Okay, when you're dealing with this, and especially if this is a good, honest, loving person, and they have anxiety, you have to find ways to help them, to approach them in a way where it doesn't create, it doesn't trigger those anxious feelings within them. Okay, so that's what I'm feeling overall. So when it comes to communication, okay, communication is something we all need to work at. And I'm not talking about you specifically. I mean, like, as a human race, okay? And what I feel with this card is that this is a card about, an interrogator. This is a card about somebody that already knows the whole story, but she wants to hear the whole story from the other person's point of view. And so she might frame a question a specific way in order to get the other person to reveal things that she already knows. So it's kind of like a person that is accusatory. It could be a person that is a little bit too, I just feel entrapment with this card, okay? And so one of the ways in which we have to, learn to communicate is to be very, very direct with our questions, okay? To not assume anything. You might already have a story in your head how things happen, and you're trying to ask a person, like, how things happen, and you're asking leading questions. Rather than asking leading questions, it's important to let them just talk, let them, tell their story. Their story might not be very linear. It might be annoying having to hear them, go off topic, go off on tangents. Their story is going to meander, and it's going to take, rather one than like half an hour to tell a very simple story. They might take like 3 hours. But I feel like patience is something that is really necessary for you this month, and as it pertains to like communicating with another person. If you want to get at the truth, or if you want them to just, give them that space to just talk in a very, in a way where they don't feel judged, where they don't feel like you're cornering them, I feel like that's going to be really important, okay? Whoever it is in your life, I feel that taking a little bit less of this, but more of like just letting the other person talk, letting them, take their time, and don't rush them, because I feel like rushing them might trigger those anxious feelings within them. And then they might feel already that, oh, he or she does not trust me. So that's very important, okay? I feel for some of you, we have some major breakthroughs here when it comes to health. And this is physical health as well as mental health, okay? So if you're dealing with anxiety, if you have somebody in your life dealing with anxiety, dealing with, bouts of depression, like I'm seeing like a very up and down emotional state, either with you or with another person, there's going to be some type of therapeutic breakthrough. And I feel like it might come through with a therapist. It might come through with, talk therapy even, where you allow somebody to just be, and as a result of allowing them to just exist, to just be themselves, I feel like there's going to be a lot of healing and a lot of breakthrough in your interpersonal relationships. So I feel like you're taking I feel like a big step back. You're taking a big step back, looking at the big picture. You're very big picture oriented. And I feel like a lot of the times too, you live more in the physical world where you deal with things that are tangible, emotions and feelings and mental health and psychosis that people are dealing with. Those things, it's hard for you to understand, but I also feel like you don't really, I want to say like not that it's hard to understand, but it's just like you feel that, okay, people should not be victims to their circumstances. They should, pick themselves up by their own bootstraps and just move on. Just like, don't let things bog you down. Just move on. And I feel like you're a very strong sign, so it's really easy for you to do that. Whereas other people might not have the skills, might not have that sense of, big picture. I guess like they might not see the big picture, and it's really hard for them to take initiative. It's really hard for them to, I guess, get themselves out of their own, um, dire predicament. Okay, so I feel that being a little bit more, um, taking a step back, giving people that room to really come to conclusions on their own, that's going to be very important. Okay, I mean, you can go ahead and tell them, you should do this, you should do that, and here's how you're going to be able to save your life and have a better life. But emotionally, they're not where you need them to be to make these changes. Okay, so I feel like you might be dealing with some people that are like this, and I feel like heavily the energy is veering towards somebody that you are either have been romantically involved with, like an ex, or somebody that you've counseled over the years, somebody that you've dealt with for quite some time, and you keep seeing them make bad decisions, and they make emotionally irrational decisions. So I feel like that might have been frustrating, and you try to help, you try to tell them, you should do this, you should do that, and they need to arrive at these conclusions on their own. And I feel like they're going to do that. They're going to arrive at the conclusions on their own. They're going to start to move forward and make better decisions for themselves. And they're also going to be a lot more independent moving forward. So I feel like that was the main problem. Maybe they were emotionally tied to some people or some things in their past where they felt like they didn't feel that empowered. They didn't feel empowered enough to be able to move on, but they're going to be able to do that. Okay, so I feel like all your support, all the things that you mentioned in the past, they know that you're right. So it's not like, they're denying it or rejecting it. It's just mentally, spiritually, they weren't ready. And I feel like this is the month in which they're going to be ready. And I honestly feel for some of you, breakthrough in therapies, breakthrough in health situations, okay, for the better, things improving for the better. I get this message here that I feel a lot of you might have like overexerted yourself. So I feel like, injuries as it relates to overexertion, not stretching before you exercise, just like wearing yourself to the ground. Okay. Like physically, I feel like there might have been some situation where you did something that you knew you weren't supposed to, and so you have to go to the doctor and things like that to take care of some pre-existing problem that that has been inflamed or that flared up. And I feel like you're going to get some healing from that. But that basically means listening to your doctor, listening to whoever is giving you counsel. You should do this, you should do that, and then you're going to start healing. Okay, so I feel like a lot of good, positive healing energies coming through for you individually and coming through for you when it comes to empathizing with another person. And, whatever you did in the past to lead them to where they're supposed to go, I feel like they're going to be able to see the light. Okay, so we have some really strong things coming in. That's going to provide a lot of validation for you that you're on the right track, that you did the right thing by helping these people. So aside from that, the last message that I'm getting here, here is the thing, and this is going to apply to just a few people. Okay, we have here the family card, and if you have estranged relationships from family members, and this can be your own parents, this can be your own children, whatever the situation might be, I feel like somebody has turned their back. Okay, somebody has just like, mom, like if you have children, they're like, mom, dad, I can't do this anymore. It's you're too difficult, or whatever the situation might be, where I feel like the other person turned their back, or you turned your back on the other person. And I feel like this is a little bit of a sore spot coming through for this month, because May in the US, it's Mother's Day. And so I feel like on the one hand, you're going to pretend like, oh, it's okay. I don't need them. I don't need that family situation. But I feel that deep down, you still crave it. Okay. So my point here is, if you have those estranged relationships, okay, and if the relationships have caused a lot of flare-ups, if like two people just can't get along and whenever they meet they bicker like children, if that sounds familiar, if that's the case that you're dealing with here, then don't get involved, don't get involved in it, because I feel like a lot of conflicts might flare up when it comes to family overall, like sensitivities, people stepping on people's toes. So that might be a sore spot for this month, but I feel like the rest of it, there's a lot of healing that's going to be coming through.